Hi, boys and girls. This is Mr. Yates, and I have Ms. Garcia here with me. We're going to go over our spiral math for Wednesday, April 1st. We're going to go through it just like we always do by making sure we have our answer on one side and our work on the other. Ms. Garcia is going to be working on the odds, and I'll be working on the evens today. Go ahead, Ms. Garcia.
All right, so number 1 says, Nurse Cat told Susanna that her mass was 37 kilograms. How many grams is 37 kilograms? So for my answer sentence, I put 37 kilograms
And you can abbreviate too, boys and girls. It's okay.
is, and then I got 37,000 grams because I moved the decimal. Because I wrote out my King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk, and I've always used that since I don't even remember how long, but that's what I always use.
So you just add, since you're multiplying by 1,000, you just add 3 zeros.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's pretty easy. All right, we'll go on to number 2. All right, my number 2 right here. The number 7,021,854 is expressed in expanded form is 7 times 1 million plus 2 times 10,000 plus something plus 8 times 100 plus 5 times 10 plus 4. Normally we would do 4 times 1, but the example here just gives us plain old 4. What number is missing? Well, I'm going to go back and look. So here's my 7 times 1 million, which is 7 million. 2 times 1,000 is 20,000, but then there's that 1,000 right there. So that means I need to put in here, and this is how I would do it. I would put the missing, not this, the missing number, and I want to give a big shout out to everybody who's been putting in answer sentences, because that is the way to go here. It helps us to understand what your answers are. So good job, boys and girls, if you're doing that. The missing number is, and I'll put it in expanded form, 1 times 1,000, or you could just say 1,000. Either one is going to be okay. And I'll put a period at the end. And then, Ms. Garcia, I'm going to do this really quick. I'm going to sharpen my pencil.
Okay, sounds bueno. All right, cool.
And I'm back.
Wow, that was fast. I thought I would like hear it. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at number 3. It says Mrs. Hastings, why do I like recognize that last name? Oh, she's the man. That's what the last name's from.
Okay.
Sorry, fun fact.
Yeah.
Okay, Mrs. Hastings used 8 gallons of gas to drive 164 and 0.8 miles. How many miles did she drive on 1 gallon of gas? So for this one, for my answer sentence, I said Mrs. Hastings drove and I just put like a little space there for my answer.
Okay.
Miles on 1 gallon of gas.
All right.
So, and then I divided my 164.8 by 8. And I made sure to turn my paper sideways.
Shakes the unicorn approves right now.
So when I divided that out.
So let me go ahead and write down 164 and 8/10. And then I'm dividing that by what, Ms. Garcia?
I divided it by 8.
All right.
So then I saw that 8 can't go into 1, so I just put a little X there for my place volume holder. And 8 goes into 16 twice. And then 2 times 8 is 16, and then you subtract, and that gives you 0. So then I dropped down my 4 from my 164. And 8 can't go into 4, so I put a 0. And 0 times 8 gives you 0. And then when you subtract, you get your 4. And then I brought down my 8, and I made sure to write down my decimal
Good call.
next to my 20. And then 8 goes into 48 6 times. And 6 times 8 is 48. And then when you subtract that out, you get 0. So I got, for my answer, 20.6. So for my answer sentence, I said, Mrs. Hastings drove 20.6 miles on 1 gallon of gas.
All right, great. Okay, Tony ate number 4. Tony ate 1/3 of a bag of peanuts. If the bag contained 15 ounces of peanuts, how many ounces of peanuts did Tony eat? One thing I'm going to do on this one, because this is going to help me to remember what to do, is I'm going to draw a model. And give yourself a star if you drew a model on this one, boys and girls, because I know some of you are asking. And yes, I'm proud if you did one. So I'd call this peanut ounces. And it says basically that the entire bag, and this is the bag, so it's the bag of peanut ounces. Bag of peanut ounces. And it says here that there's 15 total ounces of peanuts. So I'm going to put here as 15 as my total ounces. And as I read this thing, it says basically that Tony ate 1/3 of a bag with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this bag into 3 parts. And each part is 1/3. And what I want to know inside there is really, the question mark is basically 1/3 of 15. So the question mark inside here is going to be, what is 1/3 of 15? And you remember, the word of means to multiply. So I was going to do right here in my expression. I'm going to write down here 1/3. And instead of, I'm going to turn it into multiplication. Of becomes multiplied. 1/3 times 15 equals question mark. So let me get myself ready. I'm going to go ahead and write 1/3 times, and I'm going to put 15 over 1 because I can't to multiply the fraction by a fraction. And as I multiply across, I've got 15 over 3. But do we stop there, Ms. Garcia?
No, because it's not in simplest form.
You're right. It's not in simplest form. I have to take this down from an improper fraction into a whole number. So I'm going to go 15, and over 3 is the same as saying 15 divided by 3, and that's going to equal 5. So I'm going to use that 5 into my answer sentence. And I'm going to say here that Tony ate, and my total number of ounces is 5. So I'm going to say he ate 5 ounces of peanuts. And again, I'm very proud of you guys if you used a model here to show me how you figured this out. Showing your work is also important too. So you can see if you made any mistakes or if you did it right. All right, Ms. Garcia, we'll go on to number 5 now.
All righty. So number 5 says, Mr. Salazar drives 4.2 miles each way to go to work. How many miles does he drive to and from work in 4 days? Now on this, boys and girls, this one was multiple steps because you first need to figure out how much gas it takes or how many miles it is to and from work each day, because the 4.2 is only one way. So you have to multiply your 4.2 times 2 because we want to figure out how many miles it is there and back. So your 4.2 times your 2. So then your 2 times 2 gives you 4, and then your 2 times 4 gives you 8, and then don't forget your decimal. So that gives you 8.4. So that's how many miles he drives in one day. But it's asking how many miles does he drive to and from work in 4 days. So you have to take that 8.4 and you have to multiply that by 4. And so your 4 times 4 gives you 16. You write your 6, you carry your 1. 6 times 8 is 48, plus 1 is, or 4 times 8, I'm sorry, is 32, plus 1 is 33. And then don't forget your decimal point. So then you get 33.6. And my answer sentence was Mr. Salazar, or you can write he, either one works, drives 33.6 miles in 4 days.
Great. And boys and girls, like Ms. Garcia just told us, make sure you use an answer sentence for all the word problems. Okay, we're going to go on to number 6. The bottle contains 2 5/10 liters of juice. How many milliliters of juice does the bottle contain? I'm going to go ahead and just write an answer sentence right now. It, or the bottle, it contains blank. And milliliters is abbreviated, kind of weird, but it's a little m, but a big L. The reason why is because if you use a lowercase l, sometimes people get it mixed up as a 1, so people might think it's M1. So ml, little m, big L, are milliliters. And let's go ahead, again, we can use some great mental math here. We know that there are 1,000 millimeters in a liter, so we can just take 2 5/10 liters and multiply it by 1,000. When I multiply it by 1,000, I'm going to be moving the decimal here, the number of zeros, 1, 2, 3. By doing that, I don't have to really multiply at all. I just move some decimals around. Easy mental math, boys and girls. So I go 1, 2, 3. When I move it over to here, my 2 5/10 becomes now 2,500. Making sure that I use a comma here instead of a decimal now. So now my answer is 2,500. All right, great. Move on to number 7.
All right, so number 7 says a park manager has 1,523 5/10 pounds of mulch delivered to a local park. If he needs to evenly spread the mulch over 100 flower beds, how many pounds of mulch will be used for each flower bed? So in my answer sentence, I said blank pounds of mulch will be used for each flower bed.
All right.
And then for this one, I personally just moved the decimal. So I wrote down my 1,523 5/10.
I love easy
Because you
mental
have to multiply that by 100.
Ms. Garcia,
Mm-hmm.
we're not multiplying. He needs to evenly spread the mulch over 100 flower beds.
Oh, you have to divide. I read the problem wrong.
Well,
so now you have to, okay, so for this one, plot twist, you have to divide.
I was going to find the number monkey, but he's not here. Would have brought him in.
Shame. It's okay.
All right. So we're going to divide it.
So you have to divide it by 100.
We can still use easy mental math, though, and move the decimal. No problem there. We're just going to move it a different way.
Yeah. Because I got 15.235.
So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to move the decimal. So there's 2 zeros here. So we just move the decimal to the left because we're going to make the decimal smaller. So 1 and 2. And that just brings our new number to 15.235. and 235 thousandths pounds.
Oh, wow. Well, I got the same answer.
You
Apparently, my
did.
brain's just not working.
I think you
It's
just used
fine.
it. That's no worries. I'm going to go ahead
Yeah.
and put that in my answer sentence, though. 15 and 235 thousandths pounds. And just
Yep.
make sure, boys and girls, you're showing how you move the decimal so you'll know that you did it the right way. We're going to move on to number 8. So number 8 right here. Elizabeth's mother jogs every morning before work. She wears a Garmin Forerunner 235 sports watch, which records the distance that she jogs to the nearest thousandth of a mile. According to her Garmin Forerunner, she jogged 6 and 347 thousandths miles one day and 3 and 3 thousandths of a mile the next. How much farther did you jog the first day than the second day? Round the answer to the nearest tenth of a mile. Now that's the key word right there, boys and girls. We're rounding this answer to the nearest tenth of a mile. So let me get the answer sentence in there, and then I'm going to do some subtracting, but reminding that we're going to be rounding. And I threw in like this Garmin Forerunner 235 because I wanted to make sure you were reading the problem, boys and girls, and not using that number 235 for the word problem. So just making sure. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make the answer sentence here. So I'll say that she ran, and I'll just say miles farther or further. I never know which one is the right way. Since I use
I put further.
I think you're right. Yeah, and it's actually even in the word problem, so I should probably just do what they do. She ran blank miles farther the first day. You can even take that all the way out to say she ran blank miles farther the first day than the second. Either one's going to be okay. But you definitely have to have the word miles, and you have to have the word first day and farther on there. So I'm going to be mindful of the idea that we're rounding our answer to the nearest tenth of a mile. So what I can do is I'm going to be subtracting first. I'm going to take the larger number, which is 3 and 647 thousandths miles. That's how much she ran on the first day. And then I guess she was slacking. On the second day, she ran 3 and 3 thousandths miles. The second day. So I'm going to subtract those. Being careful to remember that these are decimals and not commas. So we're not talking about 3,647 and 3,003. We're actually talking about just 3 miles and some change. When I do my subtracting, I'm going to take 7 minus 3 is 4, 4 minus 0 is 4, and 6 minus 0 is 6. And now I don't really have anything here, so it just becomes 0 and 644 thousandths of a mile. Now, Ms. Garcia, do you remember how far what we're supposed to round this to?
You were supposed to round it to, I believe, the tenth of a mile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Round the answer to the nearest tenth of a mile.
Okay, so I'm going to take a look at this. I'm going to draw an underline here to make sure that this is the place value that I'm rounding. And I'm going to look over at my next value, which is 100th place. And, well, 4. So I know my rule, 4 or less, let it rest. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave that be. I'm not going to move this up. And I'm just going to get rid of those. I don't need those. And I'm going to write in my answer sentence that she ran 6/10 of a mile. And I really don't even need the word miles anymore, just mile. She ran 6/10 of a mile further the first day. And that's it. If you have any questions, boys and girls, about this one, first of all, thank you for doing it, and thank you for checking your Spiromath Liz today. We really appreciate that. If you have questions, email Mrs. Garcia or myself, and we'll work you through any problems that you have trouble with. Thanks.